everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Wayward Lasses All the Things podcast. I'm your host today, Brittany, joined by my sister Courtney.
Hello, sister.
And our mother, Amy.
Hello, ladies.
And our special guest for this evening, Kerry Holzschuh.
Hi, ladies. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you.
We are so excited to have her on the show, and we're going to introduce her here in just a little bit and kind of dive into what Kerry has to offer. But before we do that, Mom's got trivia for us today, and we're crossing our fingers that it's good trivia.
I have faith in you, Mom.
Thank you. Thank
Love
you, Kerry. All right. I'll probably do like 3, right? In case they're boring and you guys start to roll your eyes at me. So these are riddles. So what am I? So I'm usually white and used for cutting and grinding. When I'm damaged, humans usually remove me or fill me. And for most animals, I am a useful tool. What am I?
Bone?
That was my guess.
You got it? Is that it?
No.
Teeth?
Teeth. It is teeth or a tooth.
My second guess.
I was completely lost.
Number 2, I help you from your head to your toe. The more I work, the smaller I grow. What am I?
I help you from your head to your toe.
Mm-hmm. The more I work, the smaller I grow.
A
pencil.
It's good.
Heart muscle?
No. Good guess.
I don't even know if that gets smaller, but
it could, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
Say it again.
All right, one more time. I help you from your head to your toe. The more I work, the smaller I grow.
I have no idea.
The head thing's throwing me off. Head to toe thing.
Hair?
Is it your brain? But if it works harder and gets smaller, does that make you stupid?
Is it a body part?
Do we give
What is
up?
it, Mom? We give up.
Us.
Go for it.
It's a bar of soap.
Oh my
goodness.
All
We're getting all.
That's a good one. I like that
Good one. Yeah.
That is good. Very good.
All right. I'm trying to choose between these two. All right. You go at red, but stop at green. What am I?
What?
Stoplight?
A New Jersey driver.
Yeah. Yes.
I won. I am the winner.
You stop at green and go at red.
Yeah.
Is this correct? So it's opposite?
Yeah.
I don't know. Brittany?
These are all over my head.
It's a watermelon.
Oh.
Okay.
Look at you. Look at you.
Thank God I didn't have money on that one.
I never would have gotten that one.
Would have been in trouble.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lord. New Jersey driver is not inaccurate. Though.
Yeah.
That's not inaccurate.
You'll have to do one more at least so someone can get it right.
Okay. I don't know if you'll get this one right. All right. I'm tall when I'm young and I'm short when I'm old. What am I?
A pencil.
No, but that's a good guess.
That's a good guess.
Brittany, you're really sticking to that pencil.
I'm tall when I'm old.
I'm tall when I'm young and I'm short when I'm old.
My brain hurts. I don't even know. I can't guess. I can't think.
No. All right. It's a candle.
Okay.
Lord.
It's a candle. Do you want me to stop now? Are you starting to groan and roll your
Do you
eyes?
have any ones that won't get it right?
This is an easy one. Okay, so this is number 5. I said I was going to stop at 3. I even got this one. I have a head and a tail. They will never meet. Having too many of me is always a treat. What am I?
Coins.
Yes,
Coin.
agree. Yay!
Yay!
One of us is smart.
We did it.
All right.
Those were good.
Good job.
Mom, those were
Okay.
good. Those were fun. I liked
Okay.
it. That's approved. That's Courtney
That's approved? Okay.
Yes. Good job,
All right.
Mom.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you,
no
Court.
problem.
All right, so we're going to hop into today's episode, and today's episode is all about diving into Kerry and her business and her passions and the stories that she has to tell us. So we're going to give you a moment here, just in a little bit, to kind of describe yourself to us and introduce yourself to the audience. I do know that you moved down from New Jersey to South Carolina last year, right?
Yep, about 19 months ago.
19 months ago, yep. And she also has her own business called Soul Purpose Yoga and Wellness, which is a mobile yoga and wellness business. So without further ado, Kerry, would you care to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. Thank you again for having me. You guys are adorable. So my name is Kerry Holzschuh, and good job on the pronunciation. I actually met someone from Germany when I moved here, and I was working my first restaurant job, and he was German, and he said, "Oh, Kerry Holzschuh." And I said, "Oh my gosh, it sounds like a sneeze. I never knew that." That's the authentic pronunciation. So we all know now. I named my business Soul Purpose Yoga and Wellness. I've had it for about 3 years now. I had other businesses before this that were in the nutrition and like organic natural product world, because I did that for a long while in another life. And so I started with yoga, but then I became a certified health and wellness practitioner. I became a certified aerial yoga teacher, and then I'm Reiki level 2. And then I transitioned into the mental health field. So I'm halfway through my master's to become a clinical mental health practitioner. And I've worked in counseling centers, and I worked in an addiction clinic. Addiction's kind of like my jam. That's my favorite field. And that all went on hold because during COVID, I was very active in that world, as you could imagine. And then I had my 2 daughters who were struggling during that time, and I was extremely exhausted, but I do miss the field. And so what I decided to do when I moved here, and I was like, well, I really want to pursue my passion again. How can I do this in a completely different location? Because I had a really nice setup back home, and, I had 18 years there, and I was known, and I had a following. And so what I really decided to do was to blend the clinical with the spiritual. We're in a heavily Christian dominated area. A lot of people feel that yoga is taking them away from God, which is not the case. So I'm trying very hard to get the message out that yoga is actually an art and a science. It is science-based. There are scientific studies on the practice of yoga. It is an ancient practice. It is not a religion. Yes, there's a spiritual component, but if you go to an AA meeting, there's a spiritual component. So just trying to get the message out, because I'm in a very different area. So I'm not accustomed to bumping up against people saying, well, we can't call it yoga, but we could call it exercise. And I'm like, well, I'm also getting a fitness certification, and yoga's not exercise. It's very different than exercise. The actual heartbeat of yoga is breath work and stillness. It's shavasana, which they call deep relaxation. And so before the asanas, the physical poses, were ever created, you were actually breathing and sitting in meditation. And that is the heartbeat of yoga. The physical postures came much later. And that was because we understood the human condition is through movement. That somatic movement of moving energy, moving emotions through the body, so that you could achieve that state of stillness. And so that's where the asanas came in, and they weren't meant to be fitness. It's a series of structured, aligned poses. Most lineages it's a sequential, there's a sequence. It's very structured and strategic. And then you sit in meditation. And you can begin with breathing and end with breathing. And so what I decided to do here was still remain mobile. And I love to create experiences. So I do hiking in yoga. I do kayaking in yoga. I have horse trail rides in yoga. I do premier wellness retreats. I might find space to hold a class or 2 per week. But I did a very long stint in studios, and I just wanted to move away from that. It's not a judgmental thing. It's not like I have something against studio-based yoga, but I like being out on my own. I like the autonomy and I like the experience. And I also like pairing yoga with nature because we know that nature is the ultimate healer. And so yoga actually mimics a lot of the observations of what you find in nature. Like just think animals, and then there's tree pose. And yoga is a lot about being fluid like water. And so you can take the elements of yoga in and pair them up with the elements of nature, and you have a really great healing opportunity. And most people like doing yoga outside. So that's kind of what I decided to do. And I think some people look at me like, who is this girl and what is she doing? Because I think I'm offering something unique and different. And then I also do a lot of deep trauma work and trauma facilitation. That doesn't mean that you have to have something wildly traumatic in your past or your life to work with me, but I'm very adept at that. So if you have a lot of trauma or you've had a chaotic childhood or any type of death, grief, addiction issues in your life or your family life, and you come to me, that's kind of my jam. So you're getting, I feel like, the best of both worlds, meeting clinical, spiritual. So I really pride myself on being grounded, pragmatic, and practical. So again, not a judgment, but I'm not really into the foo-foo aspect of yoga. I did that for a very long time. I've been a student of yoga for 22 years and teaching for 10.
Wow.
So yeah, I started yoga very, very young. And that's kind of how I recovered from my birth, from my pregnancy and birth after my first daughter saved me. And I was a big fitness junkie and I'm a former triathlete. And yoga really healed me from a lot of injuries and a lot of adrenal fatigue and burnout. So there's this beautiful healing component to yoga. And then there's also, we know what it does for the mind and the mental faculties, which is why I love using it for trauma, anxiety, depression, etc.
Yeah. That's a perfect combination there, kind of just to encompass it all in one instead of having to go to different places for this need and here and for that.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of offer all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I had a question for you, if you don't mind sharing. What made you move from New Jersey down to South Carolina?
It's a crazy story. I had a real cush deal. I was in a house that looked like something out of a magazine. My friend was willed it from her father, and in very traditional old school Jersey Shore fashion, it was a front and back house. You don't see that now. And after Superstorm Sandy in this particular town, Ortley Beach, New Jersey, Sandy wiped out almost the entire town. Literally, it was devastating. And so when people rebuilt, a lot of them that had front and back houses just made one home. Well, this was a front and back house. And this friend of mine had the front house and her sister had the back house. I was a block from the ocean and I could walk to the bay. And I had a yoga studio in my home and I had my own private beach and I taught yoga on a sailboat.
Whoa.
And I know. I have some really awesome experiences. I'm very lucky like that. That was the best summer of my life.
Wow.
And so I knew it was coming. I just had this strong intuition and I sat my kids down and I said, don't ask me why. You know, I get these feelings, but I think my friend is going to tell me that she's going to put the house on the market and this is going to go really fast. And I'm telling you right now, I'm going to relocate and you're coming with me or you're not, but I'm out of here. And sure enough, like 4 days later, my friend sat me down and said, I'm putting the house on the market. It sold in 5 days. I had 4 weeks to get out. And I kid you not, I take risks, but I am more calculated and strategic than I think people give me credit for.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do was, well, I don't want to overwhelm myself. I don't want to be stressed with, I have to find the home. I have to find the job. And I was so burnt out from all of the work I was doing with COVID that I became a woofer. And woofing is an organic farming association. And I literally became an organic farmer. And
wow.
I lived in Ware Shoals, South Carolina for 3.5 months on an organic farm. And while I learned farming and sustainability, hold on, Chive, quiet. I'm so sorry.
No,
I
that's
just
okay.
moved in. I just moved into a new place, and her pet is a military macaw, a very large bird. And he's like so pissed right now that he's not on camera. It's hilarious. Because
Should
he
put him
has
on your
not
shoulder.
said anything this whole time, and now he's like, "Oh my God, you're on camera talking."
That's hysterical.
He talks. He says, "I love you." He says
Oh my
hello. It's hilarious. Anyway, I'm sorry. Um, so I lived on the farm, and it was perfect because I said to my kids, I want to get back to my essence. I want to get back to my soul, my purpose. I want hands in the dirt. And I've always wanted to have this experience. So my kids were like, "You're nuts. We love you. This is so you. You're crazy, but this is so you, and you have to do it." And I mean, what
Oh.
great kids to be like, "Mom,
Very
go."
supportive. Yeah.
Very well. I was a single mom for a very long time,
Okay.
and a lot of the heavy lifting fell on me. So this was really my chance to gain a little bit more composure. And it was a very difficult day to say goodbye.
Yeah.
But
can
I
imagine.
was just there, and I go, I've been there home 4 or 5 times since I moved. My youngest has been here 3 times. My oldest has been here a couple times. So, and we FaceTime, and,
Yeah.
we talk, and, kids, they're 21 and 20. So it's not like I abandoned my kids. It's not
Right.
like
They're old enough.
they're kind of like situated, but they're like texters. And sometimes I'm like, this is not good enough for me.
Yeah.
FaceTime me. I
Yeah.
need to see your face. And
Yeah.
they're like, okay, okay. And then I get like 5 minutes, and they're like, I gotta go. Like, I have a life. I'm so busy. Like, I have nothing going on, Like, I'm a decrepit old lady, and I have nothing better to do. Yeah, but I love them. So that's how I ended up here. How I ended up in Greenville was really by fate. I'm very private and reserved, believe it or not, and I don't tell people a lot, and so very few people knew. Like, I'm talking 4, and out of those 4 people, 3 of them were like, "Oh, move to Greenville."
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And they didn't know each other, so no one knew that they were giving the same information.
Yeah.
And it worked perfect because my daughter's grandparents have been in Bluffton for 17 years. So this was almost comfortable.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I'm moving to Hawaii and my
Right.
kids being like, "What?" It's like, "Oh, you live 3.5 hours from grandma and grandpa. We can, get on board with that."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So here I am, farmer yoga teacher.
Love it.
And I showed up to the farm with a shirt, and I was like, "Oh, this is so northern. They're probably going to pick me off the farm." And it had 2 hoes intersecting, and it said, "Where are my hoes at?"
I'm sure they appreciated that.
And I was like, "I don't know how this is going to go over, but I thought it was hilarious."
I love it.
Oh my
I love
God.
that. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love I'm from New York. I'm from Queens. So I've got
Okay.
the heavy accent too. So I just love hearing you talk. I'm like, oh, it feels like
You
home.
get it? It's like home, right? Yeah. And
Like, you can keep
sarcasm
going.
is our love language.
It really is. It's
And
the truth.
here, I feel like they think you're being snarky, and I'm like, "No, this is just how I love you."
Yeah.
Like, being sarcastic.
I've gotten so many looks. I just started to kind of like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and just let you guys take the
Yeah.
lead because I'm scary.
You gotta be careful who you shine your sarcasm love light on.
Yeah. Oh, but I love your story. That's so incredible. I wanted to ask you a question about going back to yoga. So for our listeners listening and wanting to reach out to you, I know that like for me, before I ever took my first yoga class, I always thought that yoga was about stretching and about being limber and flexible. And so I'm not very flexible. And that really discouraged me from ever walking into a yoga class. So what would you say to our listeners? I know you already kind of touched on meditation and breathing are the heartbeat of yoga, but what would you say to a new person who's maybe listening to this podcast, wants to check you out, check out what you do, but feels a little intimidated by the whole idea of, yoga?
Sure. I love telling this story. I had a woman in her 70s take a more regular base class. What I mean by that was like, I teach chair yoga. I teach, to seniors. I call them wisdom warriors. I'm like not in love with the term seniors,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a seniors class. And I thought, well, how bold and brave of this woman. And I kid you not, this woman could barely do a thing. And she's with much younger women. And within 4 months, I wish I had taken videos of her progress. She was doing poses exactly like these girls in their 20s.
Wow.
So I say, don't get discouraged. You have to remember we are all physiologically different. I mean, our muscles, like look at somebody's arms. You see people with really long arms. You see people with really short arms. You see people with long legs. It doesn't really matter if you can touch your toes or not. And it's so cliche, but that's not really what it's about. Yes, there's a flexibility component. There's a mobility component. You're not just working your muscles, but you're working deep into the fascia, and that houses a lot of our emotional health and well-being. So there's so many facets to it. I think it's more about getting out of your head, because we're really our own worst enemies and our own worst critics. So get off the couch, stop thinking about it, and just go and do it. But here's my biggest tip and suggestion. You have every right as a prospective student to call and say, can I come and talk to you?
Yeah.
Can I meet you in person? Can I see where classes are going to be held? Can I take a class for free?
Yeah.
If you're just being thrown to the wolves, probably not a good option for you. Beginner students they have the right to be really nurtured and nourished. And that's why I love beginner classes, because I remember being that student, even being a young girl. It was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what this is about. Everybody just tells me you feel fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not about how flexible you are. It's like anything else. Consistency, consistency, consistency. I'll be very honest with people. You can take one class a week. Here's the deal on that. You're going to feel really good that day. The next day, you're going to feel the way that you feel every other day. You want to take 2 classes a week, you're going to feel good for 2 days. You take 4 classes a week, and I don't care if you're doing it YouTube and then taking a couple in person. I don't care if it's an hour class or a 30-minute class, you're going to see results. So it's really consistency as well. Yeah, I mean, I ask questions, be super inquisitive.
Yeah.
Don't just go in blindly and just like take class. I had someone come to like one of the hardest classes that any teacher could teach, and it was a fitness yoga based class. And I was like, I can't, and they were mad at me. And I was like, you will hate yoga and you will hate me if you take this class. Like, you're a beginner student. You cannot be in this. You're going to cry. Because it was such a strong vinyasa flow.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people want the money.
Mm.
And I'm so hopped up on ethics and integrity that if you came to me and I didn't think I could work with you, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to say, this is not my scope of practice as a yoga teacher.
Right.
Your stuff is beyond my training, but I will refer you out. I won't ever leave you hanging. So yeah. I know that was like a lengthier answer, but
No, it's good.
There's so many different components to that, because like people are so worried about flexibility, and I'm more worried about the integrity and the ethics of the teacher and the place that they're going to.
Yeah. No, this is good. Having you expand on, all of the different things involved. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about yoga. So this is excellent.
Oh, there are.
This is excellent. Hopefully you're, just by having this conversation are encouraging people to try it out. So
try it. Do YouTube. Do a 20-minute YouTube video for beginners. If you're that hopped up of like, I don't want people. I always say people are like, is everyone looking at me?
Yeah.
You feel that way. Everyone's looking at me. I'm screwing up. I don't know what I'm doing, and everyone's looking at me. And I'm like, no one's looking at you, and everyone feels the same way. Right. But if you feel that way, start off of YouTube. Yeah. There's excellent I do yoga off of YouTube every day. They're phenomenal teachers on that channel. Yeah, for sure.
That's good.
Is there a recommended amount of time, regardless if you're a beginner, advanced, that you should be doing yoga? Like 5 minutes a day is enough, or you should at least put in, a half hour. Is there a recommended amount of time, or is it just what you can dedicate?
This is a great question. And this is so ironic because one of my best friends lives in Lecce, Italy. And so we WhatsApp each other all the time. And I messaged her today and I said, what is up with these micro yoga classes that are 5 to 10 minutes? Listen, if you're a teacher and you're putting up a 5-minute video to demonstrate, awesome. I'm on board with that. But if you think 5 minutes of yoga a day, that's one pose, an iron bar. Your whole like that's one pose. It's like, what? So, and again, this is just me. Like, I'm not going to get into the thick of it with other yoga teachers, and it's just me. My training was very authentic. My teacher trained in India. It was completely therapeutically aligned. We studied more lineages than you could ever fathom. I've practiced every lineage under the sun for 2 years on my own as a student.
Nice.
I don't know one lineage who would say, yeah, yoga 5 minutes a day is going to be the trick. But I will say this. If you are into a more yang, stronger practice and you find a solid 20-minute video, that's probably enough for you.
Right. Okay.
If you want yin because it is longer holds, it's a little more difficult to do 30 minutes of that. I'm not saying you can't, but I would say 45 to an hour for a class like that. Okay. Anything more gentle, 45 minutes to an hour. I see the appeal of shorter times.
Yeah.
But make sure that you're really feeling the difference. Oftentimes after a 20-minute class, it's like, oh, I'm warmed up. Class is over.
Yeah.
So just, I'm not saying it doesn't have any benefit. But traditionally speaking, I'm talking about like real deal yoga training classes are an hour to an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
Other lineages like Dharma Mitra and Ashtanga, I think even Anusara classes ran 90 minutes.
Wow.
I think what's happening is we're living in a time where people are in such a time crunch. Mm-hmm. So I would even suggest if you cannot do a full 45 minutes to an hour, 2 20-minute classes in a day, if you could swing that, would be awesome. And that could be broken into morning yoga, bedtime yoga. And I'm a big fan of those 2 times a day because you want to rev up your nervous system in a gentle way in the morning. And then you want to regulate your nervous system to like wind down for bed. So that's always one of my practical suggestions. Can you square away 2 sessions for 20 minutes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Good advice.
I have a question for you. I feel like maybe one of the reasons why yoga is typically longer is because, like you were talking about earlier, is the meditation aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And really kind of understanding the flow of energy. You're not just doing poses, but you're supposed to be feeling, energy move from one place to another in connection with yourself and with, the environment around you. At least that's my understanding of the time that I've done yoga and practiced that in meditation. Could you kind of explain like the relationship between meditation and yoga and how they kind of combine to make it a full experience versus just I'm standing in a pose for a certain amount of seconds?
Sure. So most people are afraid of meditation. I'm just very honest with everybody. I am a sucky meditator. My mind is very fast. I get bored easily. I had someone say to me the other day, well, if you get bored, you're lazy. And I was like, I am the antithesis of a lazy person. I just have a really, really hard time sitting in stillness. That does not mean you don't do it. But it's there because I have friends that sit down and slip in. I'm like, where did you go? You could like tap them on the head. They're like gone. I'm like, how did you get that brain? I'm so envious. It is a practice. So there's these things in yoga, this word, Sanskrit is the language. So when you hear like Tadasana, mountain pose, Trikonasana, triangle, it's Sanskrit. And there's a word in Sanskrit, it's called vrittis. And that's like what they refer to as the monkey mind. And so meditation is really to calm that, where the physical practice is to move, like Brittany was saying, move that energy around. So it's difficult for someone like me to just go take a meditation class or to wake up in the morning and sit in meditation. And the morning hours are very, there's an auspicious time frame of like 4 a.m. You'll see, like, if you go to an ashram in India, you're meditating. Sometimes some of them are 3:30 in the morning, but most of you start at 4:30 in the morning because it's that auspicious time of the morning. And I just can't do it. So I'm better getting some movement in and then being like, okay, I got a little bit of that energy out. I moved things around. Now I can sit. And so for me, that's how I explain the connection between the physical asana practice and the meditation. Moving energy somatically, whatever word you want to use. I love, there's this concept in yoga of working your issues out of your tissues, because really trauma gets stored in our cellular memory. It gets stored in our tissues. It gets literally stored in the body. And so working through that, and then the mind is a little calmer. I mean, that's why some people can't wait for Shavasana at the end of a class. Like if you have chronic pain or an ongoing illness or some type of issue, you need to move, right? You need to do certain things to move that energy around. And then you're like, oh, thank God it's time for this. And I can just lay here in corpse pose and like do nothing. That's really the beauty of it. They say in Kundalini, you should be able to lay down and fall asleep in the snap of a finger any time of day, at any point in your life. And I'm like, well, we are not meditating on a mountain every day. We're what's called householders. So we are, very involved in the human condition. So that's not completely realistic, but I understand the underlying concept of what they're saying is getting yourself into that relaxed state. And we are living in a time where everyone's nervous systems are very dysregulated. So to me, yoga is a gift in many, many ways. But I don't try to convince anyone of that, because if you feel better going for a run and that does it for you, go for a run. But my thing with yoga is more entwined in the therapeutic aspects of like, that's great that you're a runner, because I've done yoga for athletes, but let's stretch out the muscles and prevent injury, because when you're in your 60s, you're going to feel things a whole hell of a lot different than you are now in your 20s. So I see yoga as medicine. I see yoga as prevention. I see yoga do amazing things for mental health. Yeah.
Love that. I want to could you talk a little bit, just branching off of that, talk a little bit about the benefit of yoga for kids? I've got 3 kids, and I've heard so many great things about starting them, that it helps with the mind, that it helps with anxiety. So could you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So social emotional regulation for kids with yoga is fantastic. All the things that you just said, depression, anxiety, even shyness, but it really is a confidence booster. And here's why, because yoga is challenging. I mean, there are challenging poses. This is why there's beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And I teach kids yoga, and it's one of my absolute joys, because you see these kids light up, especially when you have that kid that maybe is not the most popular kid, or he's bullied, and I'm saying he, but he, she, or they are, bullied or just not noticed. They don't feel seen or heard, and they rock crow pose, and you see it. It's like instant, and they light up, and it's like, I just did something I didn't think that I could ever do. So there's that. Also, it increases athletic performance. It enhances academic performance. It's amazing for memory. It's so helpful for, studying, because you're talking about dristis and focus and maintaining composure. They're learning how to regulate their emotions through breath work. And then also there's a lot of partnering with kids and a lot of playfulness. Like I always say, if you're teaching kids yoga and you think these kids are going to stay on their mat, and you think your job is to keep them on their mat, go teach a different group of a different demographic, because let them be. Just let them be. If they want to run around the room, I'm like, little Johnny is going to come back and join us when little Johnny's ready. They're kids. They're absorbing everything.
Right.
And for that kid who doesn't want to stay on his mat and maybe participate in all of it, they are getting the social component.
Right.
So kids on the spectrum really, really do well with yoga. Any type of social awkwardness, I highly recommend a yoga class. I wouldn't throw them into a bigger size class because I think that can be a little intimidating.
Yeah.
I keep the classes smaller sized for that reason, because I used to work with the autistic population. I used to run an autism camp when I worked in higher education, so I'm really sensitive to that.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. I would be interested to see how my kids would do in it. So I've never heard of kids yoga before. So I think that that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for the teacher, and it's a lot of fun for the kids.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
I would love to see the kids doing yoga choreography.
Oh my gosh. It would be funny. It might help Emma, actually. She deals a lot with anxiety and big emotions, so she might really benefit from it. I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, please do. And I'll send you a link to my favorite kids YouTube teacher.
Yeah,
She's
please
phenomenal.
do.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Kerry, I have one more question for you. Your career with yoga and also with the mental health aspect, what would you say was your biggest challenge or your biggest hurdle that you had to overcome throughout the years?
Well, some of you are, your moms, you have kids. So raising kids and trying to work jobs to make money while you build your business. It's like the age old entrepreneurial story. And, there's moments where you want to throw in the towel and you want to give up. And then I have to phone a friend and be like, talk me off the ledge. This happens to me like once a year.
Oh, wow.
Where I'm like, oh gosh, what is happening? If, maybe I'm a little impatient, I want it to happen, or things slow down, or I want it to go in one direction and things want to go in another, and I'm resisting because I'm human and I think my way is the best way. I often say to people, I'm not the same person that I was. Like, I have friends from eons ago who are like, I don't even recognize you. But I will say a lot of that is because of yoga, because I was very controlling. I had a temper. I'm feisty now, and that'll never go away, but it's like a good feisty. There were a lot of things about me that I didn't like, and it was a lack of emotional intelligence and emotional regulation because I came from a very chaotic household. Now, I can go back and say, well, look what my family dynamic did. And that's okay for a while, because you kind of need to be mad at everybody because they didn't give you the tools, right? But they did the very best that they could. And then you get to the point where you say, okay, I'm a big girl now and I have to take responsibility for this.
Yeah.
So, the hurdle was that at first, that was one of the biggest challenges, was like, I need to get my stuff together here. And even when I first became a teacher, it wasn't like I was completely over the hump of all that. I mean, that's like a work in progress. So as an earlier teacher, I cringe sometimes at the things I would say to my students or my own behavior, because I wasn't always a very good role model. But I really was doing the best that I could with the tools that I had at the time. So now it's more really keeping myself in check. That's why I'm big on boundaries, discretion, ethics, integrity, being very transparent and authentic. So that was a hurdle, like getting to that point where I'm really comfortable putting myself out there now, because I feel like I carry so much integrity and that I'm super authentic. And then just being consistent. Because I think, as you know, like even podcasting, like it's a lot. And you have to be very consistent. Your business needs to be your creative endeavor always needs to be nurtured and nourished. And so because I'm not at a point where I can hire out help, I'm kind of doing it all on my own. The marketing and the advertising and the coordinating and the graphic design and creating everything and then running the events and teaching.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, but I have to, I love it.
You
like,
do.
I'm sure all the things that you're doing for podcasting is like, but you just love it.
Yeah. So it's
not
work.
So there's always a challenge right now. Again, I'm so grateful for this podcast, because you're asking me very different questions. And I'm so grateful for that, because I think this will help people understand more about the integrity of yoga. being in this area, I think people are kind of nervous to step out and say, "Oh, it's almost like I took a yoga class." And I want people to be like, "I'm doing yoga."
Yeah.
You know? And I can still read my Bible. And I'm like, yes, we can have it all.
So I know that you have a retreat coming up. Could you kind of tell us about that retreat, kind of about the one that's coming up? So if anybody wanted to go to it, what to expect, what things that we'll be doing while we're there, because I think we're all going to try to go to your retreat.
Sure. Ooh, awesome. I'm really excited about this. It's at Kaluna Farm Retreat. It is in Talking Rock, Georgia. Just the name of the town is like, that is so cool. I like saw the name of the town and I was like, I want to book this and I don't even know what it looks like yet. I'm just like Talking Rock. They're lovely. They're family run and owned. The whole history is on the website. It's April 28th to the 30th. It's a 98 organic farm and we get the entire farm to ourselves.
That's cool.
So I can only take up to 15 people unless people want a primitive camp. And I can't let people pay for primitive camping until I have 10 people booked for lodging. That's not my rule. That's their rule. But the lodging is off the hook. There's a rooster roost. There's an authentic log cabin that's like I'm like, I always tell my kids I'm Laura Ingalls. They're like, who are you talking about? And I'm like, Laura. She's the coolest chick ever in the history of TV. And I saw this log cabin. I was like, that's my home. And then there's a tree house. Like you can actually stay in a tree house. I'm like, how? And I think it has a slide. Like that's
cool.
Yeah. So, and then I'm in a yurt. I'm staying in the wooden yurt and all our facilities have kitchens, but it's farm to table meals. All the meals are included. Yoga twice a day, breathing meditation if you'd like to join me, hikes every day. For the 2 days that we're there, you get a farm tour. There's a farm workshop, and it's because I only work with women. I work with men in classes and events, but for retreats, it's only for women.
Yeah.
And the farm workshop is going to be led by Megan, who is one of the owners. And I chose to do women's hormone balance and just nurturing the endocrine system because our endocrine systems are very bombarded. And that's why we're seeing rises of uterine and ovarian cancer and polycystic ovarian syndrome. And women are going into menopause and perimenopause much younger than ever. The rate of hysterectomies is up. So I'm really passionate about that. And she was like, yeah, we'll make like a tincture or a tea or a salve. So it's all included, the food, the lodging, and everything.
Nice.
That
sounds exciting.
Yeah, the hiking is easy to moderate. These are not like, you do not need to be an avid yogi. You do not need to be an avid hiker. You are responsible to bring a mat and clothes to wear for yoga and your own hiking stuff. But when I say like we're going hiking, you don't need trekking poles and a huge backpack. And no.
That's good.
I'm certified in wilderness first aid. So I have a medical grade first aid kit and I'm CPR certified. So if you get injured out in the wild, I'm pretty confident that you're in good hands. So there's that. I mean, I think it's good to know that, somebody's leading you into the wilderness for hikes. I don't want to turn around and be like, oh, that looks bad. You're sorry.
Good luck, Sylvia.
That's not helpful. What is this teacher doing? And we can do yoga inside and outside. And there's lots of livestock. There's some rules with the livestock, but we can visit the livestock. So, 2.5 days of that. And they're super flexible with check-in and check-out. I was like, when is check-in and check-out? She's like, whenever you want it to be. I was like, okay.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. So it's a really nice way to connect, create community, meet new people, regulate the nervous system, learn a new skill set. And just, I think after COVID, I think we're just really craving authentic connection and time in nature and relaxation. And I think people are on board with that now because I think COVID really kind of scared people straight. Like wellness is now a priority. And I love that that's the most positive thing because I call COVID the thief of all joy. And then I was like, well, that's a little critical and harsh, Kerry. Like, where you're a yoga teacher, you need to like make a positive spin on it. And I was like, well, people are into wellness now. So that's a good one. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Well, before we start wrapping it up, did you have anything that you wanted to add or say?
No, this is I think I've been thorough enough. I'm so deeply grateful for the three of you. Again, I cannot say enough that you are like so adorable. I just love it. I even love the name. I was like, these are the cutest people ever. I want to be their best friend. I love what you do and the energy, and I'm just super, super grateful. I hope that, I often say that if someone's listening to this, I don't need you to become my student. I am just super stoked if somebody listening goes out there and just explores, gets curious and takes a class, and I hope that you have a positive experience and that it does for you what it does for many people.
Love that. We were so grateful to have you on here. We had such a great time. Before we close out, there's two things. Can you tell us how we find you, your website, where we can find the retreat, all your social media handles? And then I would also kind of want to meet your bird.
I will try my best. Chive is so ticked right now. He wants out of the cage. So my Facebook is Kerry Holzschuh. My Instagram is kerry.soulpurposewellness. And my website is soulpurposewellness.com. And then if you go on my website and go under wellness retreats, you'll see the retreat information.
Perfect.
But I don't have a scheduler yet. So you see the details and the marketing, and then you just contact me to make payment.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll put all that information.
I'm not that fancy yet. I'm not like house yet.
And we'll put all that information in our show notes and all that. So if anybody didn't pick it up in the audio, they can at least get it from that. Mom, all right,
Corey, I'm gonna try to get Chive on. This is so funny because I did this today with my daughter. I was like, "Do you want to meet Chive on FaceTime?" And she's like, "This is so weird." He's upside down right now. Chive, can you see him?
Hi, you're on camera, Chive.
Chive, say hello. Say hello.
Oh, now he's quiet.
Now he's quiet.
You're getting attention. You're a star now. You're on TV.
Hello. Camera
Can
shy.
you say hello?
No.
As soon as I walk away, he'll say it. And he's like, I love you.
Okay.
He's so perplexed. See him? It's hilarious. He's a really beautiful bird, though.
I love the colors from what I can see.
Beautiful colors.
Yeah.
So colorful. And then he, the first time we met, I was super skittish. I had to get used to him because he'll like fly all over and then he'll just like fly right on your back. He landed on my head one day and I was like super panicked. But, and the girl I moved in with was a little nervous. She was like, "Oh, I don't know how this is going to go," because she hasn't had a roommate since she's had him. And then like my second day in, I think I was cooking and he just like flew over and I'm like, I can't keep panicking. Like we have to become friends. And I put my arm out. And if you tell him walk down my arm, he will. If you say go to my hands, he will. And then you can say walk back up my arm and he'll walk back up. And then if I bring him over to his like one of his perches and I say step down, he literally steps down onto the perch. They're very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Please continue to support us by subscribing. We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're on all the things. I said it. So make sure that you follow us. If you have a topic you'd like us to talk about or you want to be on the podcast, you can email us at waywardlasses@gmail.com or go to our website, www.waywardlasses.com, where there is a podcast request form fill out, and that will send you straight to us. We can get you on the show. But other than that, Mom, do you want to close us out for today?
I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting here just like listening.
Listening.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Thank you to our special guest, Kerry, for taking the time to be with us as well. Until next time, we are the Wayward Lasses, reminding you to keep it real. Bye, guys. And thanks,
Bye.
Kerry.
Thank
Thanks, Kerry.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.